Shall we start on Zoom as well, inshallah, right now? Are we ready to start Zoom program as well?
We've started, inshallah. Yes, you can begin with the dua.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربي أني مسني الضر وأنت أرحم الراحمين. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وارنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وارنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه وصل اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. ربنا اغفر لنا وارحمنا وأنت خير الراحمين. آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Now, moderator friend is going to take care of it now, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good morning. Today we are continuing to read from the first word, which we've been reading for several weeks now. And just to provide a general overview for those of you who may have joined recently or in the last few weeks, we are talking about the meaning of the phrase "in the name of God," Bismillah, that we are all very most likely well acquainted with. And this first word, it started off with the sentence that Bismillah is the start of all things good. And we've been trying to understand what we can decipher from that, what we can make sense of that from. And so throughout this discussion thread so far, just as a point of methodology, I can only start with myself and my observations of the universe, and so in trying to understand the meaning of "in the name of God," it is pertinent to also start from that. And, first and foremost, perhaps I find myself as an impotent and completely needy one. Just to, again, provide a general recap, we've been talking about how the things that I observe that exist do not have the quality to sustain themselves or to bring to life the qualities reflected onto them, like mercy, beauty, knowledge, will, and so forth. Just again, to provide a reminder, in the first few pages of this first word, the author talked about how all things say Bismillah in the tongues of their disposition, and that they declare that they have no source of existence within this universe. They have no source of existence that is the nature of this universe, and that for all things, existing things, to say Bismillah is for them to declare that they look to a single creator, for them to act in his name. And so for me to live with Bismillah, I think, on a practical level, is to realize my absolute dependence on my source of existence, to see my qualities as reflections of his names, and to acknowledge his complete ownership over my existence and live according to that. And so the main point I think that we've been trying to take with us is that this phrase, Bismillah, means that whatever quality I see or experience in the universe cannot be from the thing itself. Things in and of themselves do not have the ability to bring about their own existence, nor the qualities they manifest and demonstrate. And thus far, we've been up to the third mystery, where we are reading from. And the overarching idea was that everything in existence looks to divine mercy. And the question, of course, is how do I confirm this? How do I confirm that everything around me is a manifestation of divine mercy, of mercy? And just to put it briefly, we talked about a great many things, but also I remember how, we discussed how the universe is prepared to meet my needs. I find that all my needs are being taken care of, and that things are being consciously prepared by the owner of this universe for me as a recipient. And that in response to this, my expected response would be to acknowledge that which is the purpose of my being, responding, communicating back with my creator. And of course, I'm sharing some of the conclusions that we've gathered throughout the last few weeks. And so right now we are on page, I want to start reading from page 5, Oh Man. We read this paragraph last week as well, and I think it would be useful to read it again and then discuss the next paragraph in conjunction with it, inshallah. So it starts, Oh man, come to your senses. Is it at all possible that the all-glorious one, who causes all the varieties of creatures to turn towards you and stretch out their hands to assist you and to say, here we are, in the face of your needs? Is it possible that he does not know you, is not acquainted with you, does not see you? Since he does know you, he informs you that he knows you through his mercy. So you should know him too, and with respect, let him know that you know him, and understand with certainty that what subjugates the vast universe to an absolutely weak, absolutely impotent, absolutely needy, ephemeral, insignificant creature like you, and dispatches it to assist you, is the truth of divine mercy, which comprises wisdom, favor, knowledge, and power. And so last week, up to this point, we had talked about this sort of dialectical relationship between me and my creator, and how, just starting with my experience, I see that everything is inclined towards me, is inclined towards meeting my needs. And that, just the sentence, he informs you that he knows you through his mercy, is by virtue of the fact that I see everything in the universe being specifically prepared, catered to my needs. And in that way, I am able to engage in a dialogue with the one who is providing me with the mercy that I experience. The text continues, most certainly, a mercy such as this requires universal and sincere thanks, an earnest and genuine respect. Therefore, say, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, which is the interpreter and expression of such sincere thanks and genuine respect. Make it the means of attaining to the mercy and an intercessor at the court of the all-merciful one. And so, inshallah, today we can try to work together to discuss this paragraph. I think there is, continuing the thread of line of thought that we've had over the past few weeks. This is a continuation of that, and in some ways, a summarization and conclusion of it as well. I'll share some initial questions that this paragraph kind of initiates within me, and I'll be happy to hear everyone else's thoughts as well. At any point you can click the raise hand button. We can try to make this an interactive dialogue and work together to understand this text. There are, just looking at this paragraph more closely, there are a lot of claims in this paragraph that we can try to analyze and make sense of. So far, in this third mystery, the focus really has been on divine mercy, and we've talked about what that divine mercy means and how it reflects and manifests itself in my experience as a human being in this universe. And so here it's saying that this mercy mandates, requires, right, necessitates thanks and respect. And that in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, is a means of attaining mercy, that it is a tool in this respect. Moreover, the third claim I would say is that this phrase is an intercessor. And we can try to understand what that means as well. And finally, just what other claim that I want to bring attention to is that there is a call to action here. It's saying, therefore, I should say in the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Action is required of me too. Not only do I need to reflect upon such truths, but I also need to act on them. And how this action demonstrates itself or can be actualized, we can also talk about. So let me at this point pose some of the questions that I had, and I would be very interested in hearing your thoughts. I'll also post these questions in the chat box for you all to see. And I'll go through the questions first, and then we can take them one by one and try to make sense of them. So first, and this is in the order in which the claims are also presented in this paragraph. What is the relationship between thanks and respect? And what does it mean for, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, to be the interpreter of thanks? I thought the word interpreter was especially interesting. And I misnumbered my questions, but number 3, how can this phrase or truth act as an intercessor? What does it mean for something to be an intercessor? And of course, do I need an intercessor at this court of the all-merciful one? And so, I think it would be useful. I mean, the first sentence of this paragraph, again, is saying that a mercy such as this requires, and again, I want to emphasize the heaviness of the word requires. There's a sense of necessity, of mandate there, that this mercy requires universal and sincere thanks and earnest and genuine respect. And I think that first, in order to even make sense of how this requires thanks and respect, it would be useful to examine the relationship between thanks and respect and what transpires it. So let me, we can start with that, and I'd be happy to see what your thoughts on that initial question is. What is the relationship between thanks and respect? Can I sincerely thank someone if I do not respect them, and vice versa? I'll pause here just to give you all a moment if there are any comments. If not, I can share some of my initial thoughts on that first inquiry. I was thinking that, at least for me, there seems to be a difference between 1, acknowledging the authority of something, 2, acknowledging the truth of something, and 3, respecting it. And so, for example, and those of us who have been in this class might recollect this example, we can think of a traffic light, the rule or the law that mandates that we stop at a traffic light. Now, there's a difference between me driving and stopping at that traffic light because I can acknowledge the authority of the state, right? I don't want to get pulled over. I don't want to have to pay a couple $100s or get a ticket or whatever. And then there's the different aspect of it in which I can realize or reflect upon why it is necessary that I should stop at that traffic light, the truth of the law behind it. And thirdly, and this is in conjunction with the second one, if I come to realize the truth of it, not only will I acknowledge the authority of it, and not only will I acknowledge why it is necessary, but I will also respect it. I will do it willingly, thankfully, I would say, because once I realize the truth of it and I am able to garner respect for it, then I can also confirm that I am in need of it and offer thanks. And Hamim adds here in the chat box, can we add what is universal thanks, right? I think that's another great question that we can add of, it's not just thanks, even though I shortened it in my question, but it is universal and sincere thanks. So, it seems like a strange phrase to me, at least, what is universal thanks? I don't think I've ever universally thanked someone in my human-to-human relations. How do we come to understand what is a universal thanks in light and in context of the message of divine mercy that we've been studying so far? So, that was, again, just to, get your minds thinking, I suppose. The traffic light example, I think, helps for me elucidate the relationship between thanks and respect and authority. But, the question also is, how do we bring that analogy into relevance for the text here? So I'm going to mute myself for a second and see if anyone has any comments they'd like to share or thoughts. In addition to the questions that I've listed, please feel free to add your own inquiries in the chat box, or preferably raise your hand and voice them, and we can make a collection of our inquiries and try to understand the text in light of it. If we don't approach a text with questions, then it severely limits what we understand from that text. I think it's really important that we engage in a dialogue with that text and a back and forth with it, interrogate it, if you will. But also within the framework of everything else that we're talking about. This paragraph is not isolated from the rest of the text. Abe asks, what does court refer to in the text? I think that's a good question. It says, in the last sentence, an intercessor at the court of the all-merciful one. So am I at a court? What does it mean to be at the court of the all-merciful one? I think that's also something that we can also talk about. And Abdurrahman has his hand raised, so please go ahead, Abdurrahman.
Assalamu alaikum. I don't have an answer to Ave or your questions. However, I just wanted to first share my thoughts about this paragraph, especially the last two sentences where it says, in the name of God, merciful, the compassionate, which is the interpreter and expression of such sincere thanks and genuine respect, and make it the means of attaining to the mercy, and an intercessor at the court of the all-merciful one. And I'm just thinking, how is saying in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, how is this an expression of thanks and respect for me? Like, when I say these words, what are the feelings that are invoked within me? What kind of emotions or what kind of state am I in, or should I be in? And I'm thinking, is this how I should be expressing my gratitude? Is this how I should be expressing, my respect for him? Like, how else could I do it? And I'm thinking, how else could I express my respect or my thanks to, the one that is God, the one that is the merciful, the one that is the compassionate, You know, I can't give him anything. I can't do anything for him. You know, at the end of the day, I am the one that is I'm the one that is the needy one. I'm the one that's impotent, and he's the one that is creating me. So what can I do for him? All I can do, as I'm realizing this, because, you know, as a previous paragraph talked about in the first sentence, like, there's so much mercy. Like, I'm so impotent and needy, and there's so much mercy because even though I'm impotent and needy and weak and I'm flawed, I'm constantly being given everything. I'm being served by the whole universe. I'm being taken care of, you know, even if I make mistakes, even if I contradict myself, even if I live in a wrong way, I'm always being guided. I'm always being shown the right path, I'd say. Like, I'm always being helped. Like, I feel that I'm always being helped, and there's like this mercy there. And like, you can't ever attribute or say that I deserve the mercy or I deserve this or that. It's truly just the bounty that's being given to you. And how else can I express my gratitude for this? How else can I thank the one that is doing this for me, other than just recognizing that he is the one that is doing it? Because I have nothing else to do. I can't do anything else. All I can do is just say, I recognize it. I see that you are the one that is taking care of me. So I say that you are my God. You are the one that is the compassionate. You are the one that is merciful. All the compassion and mercy I see is not from the things in the universe or the things that I witness, but it is rather you are the one, you are the doer behind them. So I can only express the truth or the reality that I find myself in. And that's like the best way I can encompass my feelings and my emotions. And going to the next sentence of make it the means of attaining to the mercy and an intercessor at the court of the all merciful one. Like, when I am, let's say, in a state where I'm not happy, or I am, let's say, like, feeling like I'm contradicting myself, or I'm feeling uneasy, like, how else can I ask for help? How else can I besiege or plead to the one that is creating me, the one that is making me exist in this universe? How else can I ask him to help me or to save me or to guide me? Like, I can't be like, oh, I worship this much, or I'm this good of a person, or I did this and that. I can't say these things because I can't attribute the good in those to myself anyways. So all I can do when I'm in these states where I need his help is say, you are the one that is merciful. You are the one that gives. You are the one that is compassionate to me, and that's all I can. That's all I can seek refuge in, is that you are merciful. You are the one that helps me. So I seek the fact that you are merciful. I seek that as an intercessor for you to help me. I ask him from his own name, using his own name. I ask from him. I make his own name an intercessor for me to attain to his mercy. And so just these were the reflections I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdurrahman, for those reflections. So Abdurrahman started off with asking, as I shared in the chat box as well, the question, I thought, how is in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, an expression of things? Is this a way to express my gratitude? If I feel gratitude, of course. And you know, he talked about how, as the prior paragraph also says, how as the human being, my existence is central to my, I mean, I'm the center of my own universe in a sense, right? I see that everything is serving me in one way or another. And there comes the question, there arises the question that if I recognize this, and if I recognize the mercy that is inherent in all this, the question comes, how do I express my things? How do I express the state of being that transpires in me by virtue of the fact that I recognize the reality of things? And as a human being, I feel mandated to express that feeling. I need to find a way to express it, you know? Again, another familiar example, if I go to a theater or an opera or something, at the end of it, we all, you know, stand up and clap. We feel the need to physically express our things as well, let alone just by virtue of reflection. But I guess one thing that I wanted to also extract from Abdurrahman's reflections was that there isn't a reciprocal relationship in terms of giving between me and the Creator. It's not that I find everything in the universe serving me, and that in response, I'm able to even give something back to whoever is the one that is offering all of this mercy to me. I am always the recipient, always the recipient. And by virtue of the fact that I am always the recipient, I can only acknowledge it. There is nothing else that I can do besides recognize this fact and acknowledge it. And I guess, again, taking from Abdurrahman's comment, we can try to understand this phrase, in the name of God, the merciful, the most compassionate, as the recognition of being a constant recipient, as a expression of the truth of reality. And by reality, I mean the fact that I am always being served. So I just, I thought it was worth emphasizing that it's not possible for me to, in the beginning of this first word, it talked about what is the price of being the one to receive everything in this universe, of being served. And, as a human being, I am not on by any means equal levels with the source of existence of everything. All I can do is acknowledge the fact that I am a constant recipient and try to be a conscious recipient in this regard. And the more I am conscious of the fact that I'm a constant recipient, the more I am able to express my thanks. So let me backtrack a little bit. We have some conversations going on in the chat box here. Gulid, would you like to read your comment? If so, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. If not, I'm happy to read it as well, but it would be nice to hear your voice as well. Okay, so I guess I will read it. Okay, so he says, I also find the use of interpreter to be interesting. Its usage suggests, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, acts as an agent that can be employed, utilized towards something, right? There's a sense of agency that's being given to the phrase. It's not just this sort of passive phrase. To be an interpreter is to be something that takes an active role. So I also think that it's interesting that agency is being attributed to this phrase as well. So let me start again. Its usage suggests, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, acts as an agent that can be employed, utilized towards something. Before reading this, I hadn't thought about its usage in this active manner. I suspect that this active mode will make my acknowledgement more practical. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really, really important point. And as just to remind, one of the questions that we had asked was, what does it mean for this phrase to be the interpreter of things? And of course, in order to answer that question, there's the other question of what does it mean for something to be an interpreter? And first and foremost, it means for it to be active. It means for it to be something that can be employed, utilized, a tool in a respect. And for me, an interpreter is something, it takes something that needs to be expressed and transforms it into communicable speech. And similarly, once I observe the all-encompassing mercy in this universe, I want to communicate with the one who is meeting all my needs. I want to express myself to him. And this phrase, saying this phrase, interprets my reflections and conclusions into a proper acknowledgement. So moving on, just going through the chat right here. Afshan says, I think intercession is needed to awaken and remind us of our source. It is easy for me to forget and get lost in my problems. Thank you. And would you like to elaborate, Afshan, with that comment?
I would just add that it's such a short statement, the Bismillah, but it almost is like snapping your fingers in front of you and like, you know, how the phrase is like snap out of it. So I feel like in this way it acts as a, as Guled said, like super practical to just get you out of your headspace and remind you of your ultimate reality. And it really feels like it shrinks away your problems because you suddenly awake. And I feel like a lot of what we learn in this class is trying to develop that heightened awareness, and it really does bring a lot of peace into your life. So this this passage really makes me feel that way. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. And before I see Nirvana's hand up, before I get to her, yeah, I think it's, you know, this paragraph, it's only like 3 sentences, but there are words here that are very interesting. You know, one, we still have to discuss universal thanks. 2, this phrase as an interpreter that we've kind of talked about, and an expression of sincere thanks and genuine respect. And you know, in the last sentence, it is a means of attaining some mercy and an intercessor. And you know, this is not a word that I use in my daily life, but what is an intercessor? You know, not in its literal sense, but what does it mean for something to be an intercessor? And do I need an intercessor? And you know, as Afshan was saying, that this phrase, because it's so succinct, right? It captures a lot in very few words, and it, as you said, snaps me back into my reality. When I say it, does it remind me of the fact that I am being served and sustained in all respects in my existence? And let me stop right there because I know Nur Shimshek has been waiting for quite a while, so please, I'd love to hear you.
Thank you, Aisin. It's actually perfect because the comments have come around to what I wanted to talk about. And I think you made an interesting point earlier in reflection or reaction to Guled. So you said here, interpreter is like an active thing, and that in a sense, when you're saying Bismillah Rahman Rahim, it's acting as a sort of like transforming your reflections into something communicable. But I think it works in the other way too, right? So we're talking about universal thanks or thanking. And it's like a really neatly packaged sentiment, because like in the last paragraph, right, we talked about how the entire universe is in servitude of this ephemeral tiny being. And that's like, it's hard to contemplate or really digest, but when you're saying in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, it can act as a sort of reminder of that universal picture, right? So of course it's also translating your acknowledgement of it, but within the phrase, it's also contained the fact that what you're thinking, or what you're like, what you're thanking for and who you're thanking is this like limitless being. And so we're given this sort of like key or tool that we can use to access or put into words that sort of like limitless mercy. Because otherwise, if we just thought about it, it's hard, right? So like, okay, I'm being given all these things endlessly, I'm always in need, but I don't know how to like really properly thank my maker who's sustaining me all the time. And so he's like, okay, I'm gonna give you a tool you can use, which contains this sort of like dynamic reminder, right? It's like, look at it, it's like, it's so short, it's very little or like tiny looking, but when you expand it, it can kind of remind you of the universality of how you're being sustained and taken care of.
Thank you for that really wonderful comment. And yeah, I mean, so far there's some very interesting themes that are coming up, which is, first of all, the sense of transformative power that's in this phrase, the sense of agency that is in this phrase, and I like how you brought in the question of what is universal thanks, and as you said, we talked about this last week as well. The entire universe, as you said, is in servitude of me, this tiny being, impotent being. And when the entire universe is serving me, there must be a way to offer a thanks that is universal in its magnitude as well, that encompasses the breadth of what is being spoken about. And I thought it was interesting, as you said, that this phrase is a tool to access. It's a dynamic reminder, and though it's a short phrase, it expands, right? And I think the more I imbibe, the more consciousness that I imbibe it with, the more consciousness that I instill within it, the more it expands into encompassing the universality of how I'm being taken care of. Ellie Murmur, I saw your thumb up, so I think you would like to speak. I would like to hear you as well.
I'm sorry, my technical position doesn't allow me to raise my hand. That's why I use that option. Beautiful, excellent comments and explanations. Perfectly makes sense. I just wanted to add about the intercession and also at the court of all merciful one. These phrases, something, what is said so far, what has been said so far, beautifully explains everything. But I want to see the picture in a very simple example. What is intercession? Between what I want and whatever I want, or who or what can give me what I need. So in between, there must be, there is something plays a role saying that, come on, this guy needs this, so come on, give it to him. How can I communicate with the absolute being, the creator, the eternal absolute? I cannot liken it or take it as a piece of this universe, a part of this universe, so that I can communicate with him in some ways which the laws of the universe or the order of the universe allows me to communicate with the creator. It is impossible. The creator cannot be within the created being. We know this, everybody knows this. So how can I express myself? For example, in a simple example, I use this example very frequently, so excuse me. I want to grow a plant in my garden. That's what I need. Now, and can I make the plant or anything, vegetable or fruit or tree or whatever? I cannot make it. Oh, what shall I do now? I have to use an intercessor. That is how the universe is an intercessor as a whole between me as a conscious being. I hope I am, but you are definitely. But as a conscious being, I know I need this plant to grow so that I will satisfy my need, especially my material bodily needs. But I cannot make it, but I need it. Who can make it? The universe is a witness to who can make it, tells me that, look, only the one who made me as a whole universe can make it. But how can I ask him, for example, give me some eggplants? I need tomatoes. But there is no answer. That's how the order says. No, order says, the way the things are created conveys the message to me and tells me, hey, you can follow this, how the eggplants or tomatoes grow, then follow this. It will be an intercession between you and the one who is going to give it to you. Give it what you need. What is that? Put the seed, put the water, and the one who creates the universe will create you tomato, whatever you want. Ah, I understand that the seed and the water and the plant or whatever I put there are functioning as intercessor between my need and how to obtain it from the creator of the universe, so that he will create the tomatoes within the universe for me according to the order of the universe. If I don't use intercessor, it doesn't really give me, because I need intercessor between me and the creator to communicate with it. Now, my feeling, it is beautifully explained by our friends here, how my feeling is interpreted, my understanding, my consciousness, my awareness is interpreted into a verbal form that I can express my feelings with the word. These words, these are explained. These words interpret my feelings, my awareness, my consciousness. The phrase, the text says, is an intercessor here now at the court of the one who really is merciful, mercifully treats you here in this world. And instead of using the seed, the water and other means, now how am I going to present my feelings, my conclusions, my awareness to the creator? How can I communicate with it? The creator provides me the seed. The creator provides me this water to transfer my demands, my needs into a physical form. And he tells me, it lets me know through his messengers, that is another subject, express yourself with this phrase so that you use it physically within the order of this universe, so that it will remind you and you will express your feelings to me. That is the only way you can communicate with me. Now, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is presented to me as a tool of using as a tool to express myself and use it as an intercessor between me and my creator, so that I will be respectfully expressing my thanks, my happiness to him. That's the only way. It beautifully explained before. We cannot really pay back anything. We just express our response back to the creator, what he has provided for us. That's it. We just express it, admit it, confess it, but not as an obligation, what some people think, I mean, not justifiably, that God asks us to worship him in return. But worship is what? Expressing yourself. Using it, this worship, using it as an intercessor to transfer, to interpret your feelings, your understandings into a word form and present it to the Creator, because he says, in order to express your thankfulness, use this intercessor, which is Bismillah. This is the way which functions as a intercessor between me and my Creator. My Creator, at the court of all merciful means, in his presence, that is how I can express myself. That is how I can communicate with him. I think Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is a seed to receive the tree or beautiful garden of my feelings and present it to my Creator in the form of a bunch of flowers, something like that. It is beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ali Murmur, that beautiful comment. And just as you all might have noticed, when anyone comments, I'm going to try to just post 1 or 2 tidbits that I extract from their comments into the chat box as a reminder of some key points that or conclusions that they're bringing to mind. And yeah, I think, you know, in what Ali Murmur was saying, it seems like there are many intercessors, in that the universe can be an intercessor when I recognize the order of the when I recognize the order of the universe. It becomes an intercessor between me, a conscious being, and the Creator. All right. Assalamu alaikum. And the universe can also be a witness to the Creator, but it is a witness to the one who can create by virtue of the fact that it does not have the ability to create in and of itself. Through its lacking, its complete emptiness, it shows the absolute owner. And this is a sort of process of negation that we can follow. At this point, I'm going to also just repost again the questions and topics at hand that we have for this discussion today. We've touched upon some of them. Many of our friends here have commented on them and offered their own responses to them, but just because someone offers their understanding does not mean that you should not try to contribute towards that understanding, so that we can hopefully have a more comprehensive understanding. The more pieces to the puzzle, the better. Juan and Shahira say, food for thought, why do we need an intercessor? I think that's a great question as well. You know, as was raised, we're seeing that this phrase, this Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, can be an intercessor, right? As Ali Murmur said, it can be a seed to receive the beautiful garden of my feelings and present it to my Creator in the form of like a bouquet. It has this ability to transform my feelings, to take my state of being, my consciousness, and interpret it into a verbal form. But the question also comes back to, do I need an intercessor? And why do I need an intercessor? You know, to answer the question, why do I need an intercessor? I think I have to first tackle the question, do I need an intercessor? Is it true that I have feelings that I need to somehow communicate to my Creator? And how is it that I come to that stage? So I'm you know, Juan and Shahira, I would be happy to see if you would like to elaborate further, or if you have any you know, initial remarks that you'd like to share in terms of that question that you posed. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. So this word intercessor and the sentence, let me have a look. It says that we're in the court of the most compassionate, the merciful. It just reminds me of, you know, having a lawyer to defend me in case I get into trouble. at a court. So I'm wondering, why do we need an intercessor? Why can't we just defend ourselves or just use our own agency to get what we want or express ourselves? That's my reflection on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Shahira. H. Beza, we'd like to hear you.
So
Afterwards, we can hear Brother Ali Member, inshallah.
these are just my takeaways from some of the previous comments, and please feel free to correct me if you think otherwise. But I was thinking about like the act of intercession, as opposed understanding it as opposed to something representing me. Rather, it is the means through which I get to a certain conclusion or become aware of something. So, for example, in regards to having like many intercessors, one being the order of the universe, I was thinking about like if following the order of the universe with the consciousness that it must have an order, and that I am part of this deliberate design, and that everything is being given existence at this particular moment, that I'm not, my existence is not isolated or in a vacuum, that it's not just out of chaos or randomness, like everything is being deliberately, consciously placed for me. And becoming aware of this through a conscious following of the universe, because everyone follows the order of the universe in different ways. But what is the difference between two people, or what is the difference between one who follows it with the consciousness versus someone who follows it just to get, like, if two people want to eat and both are farmers and they both water and take care of their plants, what is the difference between what makes one an intercessor, for example, and perhaps not the other? The consciousness behind following the order of the universe and recognizing that in my watering or the sowing of the seed and the watering of the plants or whatever, it's not that in and of itself which has the quality to bring forth the fruit or the vegetable, as we've been discussing when we say in the name of God. The qualities cannot be inherent to the things themselves. So in my understanding, intercessor then becomes, rather than a representative, a means through which I can get to know and acquaint myself with the source of existence, or my creator, who looks to all of my needs, not just I am created and there's a creator, but rather what does it mean for me to have a creator for me? Because I find that within myself, my physical and material needs aside, I have all these feelings, need for eternity, need for happiness, that cannot be met by the universe itself.
Thank you, H. Beza, for that. Ali Member, would you like to speak?
Very briefly, yeah, I'm not really saying that what was said wasn't sufficient. No, just put it in another word and keep the interactive communication, which makes the room alive. So why, or do I need intercessor? I think this question makes me think about my position in this world. Now, my position in this world, that very simple, it's very simple. Am I created, or am I dependent in my existence, or do I exist by myself? If I accept that I am dependent in my existence. I cannot be my own creator. So I'm given existence by someone. I have to accept this status. Now, I am responsible for myself within this status that I am created. If I am created, if I have been given qualities, human senses, which recognize my creator, I have to communicate with the creator within my own status as a created being. I cannot see or assume that since the creator knows me, for example, in my practical life, I am hungry now, I need food, or I'm cold, I need dress, some clothes to put on me. So he knows me, come on, let him do it. It is not appropriate to my status in this world. Why? I am here to recognize who my owner is, whom I belong to. Whom I belong to. That is my position. My consciousness is given to me to realize whom I belong to and what my position before him, how I can communicate with him. All these questions are, if you notice, rounded around me, how I can express myself, how I can communicate, not how he can communicate. He is the creator. That is his status, not my status. For example, if the teacher asks me about a question, if I say, excuse me, don't you know the answer? You are a teacher. And teacher says, yeah, but you have to learn it, who you are. You are a student. You have to learn it. I'm just expecting you to learn it. Not, I know, is my concern, not your concern. What I know, that's my position, my status. Your status requires to learn it, to express it, to say it, to practice it. Now, my position is a created being. I need to express myself. In order to express myself to my creator throughout all my life, with no exception, I always use intercessor. If I don't want to dine right now, I need to breathe, inhale air into my lung. What I do this, I may not be aware of it, but I need to do it practically because I have been using it. I'm prepared in such a way that that is an example just. If I am thirsty, I need water. So I have to go and get the water and drink it. Whatever I needed, I am taking care of my own responsibility. I don't say, the creator knows that I need food, so let him give it to me. No, the way I am created, the way that my position requires me to do is very simple. I have to do my duty in order to acknowledge my status. That is why, because of my position in this universe, makes me use intercessor. Now, in order to express my feelings, my conclusions about what is happening in the universe, I have to use an intercessor, which is in the form of speech. Now, sometimes in the form of doing something. For example, the prophets teach us that you have to perform your ritualistic worship. It means prayer, fasting, etc. And sometimes you have to use your tongue to express, because what do you think the tongue has been created in your being in order to express and let the words interpret your feelings? You use it throughout all your life. Why shouldn't I use it in my relationship with my Creator? That is my position. It means requirement of my position is to use intercessor in order to communicate with my Creator every time, with no exception. Why not to express my feelings to my Creator? I shouldn't use my intercessor, which is provided for me by my Creator. Taught me, use this one, say it, be conscious of the content of what you are saying, consciously use it. When you use it, mean it. It means respectfully use it. Respectfully use it. When you say in the name of God, you should mean it. You are the one who's creating it. I am utilizing, benefiting from it by acknowledging your ownership, your creatorship over this thing that I'm benefiting from. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, I think some key points here to think about is to, first and foremost, always start with, as Brother Ali said, start with my position in this world. I have to think about myself and the nature of my own existence. Is my existence one that is self-sustaining? Is it one that has created itself? If I start with the realization that I am a created being, and by virtue of that, dependent, needy, impotent, then I also start with the consciousness of what that status of existence looks like. And as he said, I just wanted to share a few things. You know, acting and thinking in accordance with my status in this world and existence, and consciousness then is given to realize whom I belong to and what my position before the Creator is. And on the topic of intercession, I think it's important to just emphasize again that intercession, again, by virtue of my status in this world, in this existence, it is not possible for me to do anything, to go about in existing without intercession. So we have to, I guess, try to navigate around the meaning, around the definition of intercession as is being understood here. Following the order of the universe is using an intercession. Putting into speech my thoughts, my feelings is using an intercession. Typing out my feelings or writing something is using an intercession. I am always using an intercession. It does not mean, I think, that I do not have a direct and personal relationship with the Creator, but it means that I am acting in accordance with the way I find myself in this world, which means following the order as it is. Also, one other thing that I wanted to draw attention to is, and I just want to, you know, I don't think, perhaps it wasn't as interesting to other people, but, you know, one of the questions that I started off with is, what is the relationship between thanks and respect? And maybe the reason I asked that is, I was wondering, what does it mean to respect the Creator? It was said that respectfully using the phrase, in the name of God, the most merciful, the compassionate, means using it sincerely, using it in its with a consciousness of what it means. But I would also be interested in hearing further thoughts on it. To read a comment by Mehmet, he's saying, "Am I curbing my human desire by saying Bismillah, which means I want the best, but I acknowledge your greatness?" Mehmet, would you like to expand upon your question here? If so, please feel free to unmute yourself. I'll give you a second. Okay, if not, we can try to think about his question. Am I curbing was that my human desire by saying Bismillah? Okay. So let's keep that in mind, and I'm going to give the floor to Farah right now, who has her hand up.
Assalamu alaikum. I will probably touch on the question that Aishanur posed about the relationship between respect and thanks, and perhaps add a comment on the topic of intercession, because it's something that I'm trying to understand more. So a couple of points that have led us to this discussion that I want to state, just to keep in mind in the steps that I will follow. The first thing that in the beginning of this discussion, as you recapped our conversations, it was sort of recapped that man is in a dynamic, active conversation with the creator, with his creator, the creator of this universe. So it is a direct and a personal conversation taking place through creation. The fact that man is, which sort of comes from the fact that man is at the center of this conversation that is taking place in the universe, that perhaps all of this show, this orchestra playing out in front of us every day as we observe the signs in nature, everything is performing, so to speak, or, the words we'll use also could be like glorifying or praising or rejoicing, for man to see, for him to witness, and for him to testify. And that obviously this is in response to man's need, or his inherent nature of being needy and of requiring an answer to why he exists. With keeping this in mind, I think about, let's say, being at a show. There was a very nice storm here yesterday. And right before the storm, so many things were happening at the same time. The birds started to find refuge, the trees started to sway, the leaves started to fall, it started to smell different. And all of this was sort of, coming about at the same time, like a show unraveling for man to see. And I think if we think about this as something particularly happening for us, particularly also not just doing this happening in terms of something that we desire, but perhaps something even more stronger than that, like something that we need, for it to mean something for us, then for me to not acknowledge it, for me to not recognize it, perhaps sitting at a show, I just turn my head away and not, see all that is being done for me, would be disrespectful. And so I was translating this idea of respect as just mere acknowledgement, and absolutely sincerely, and you mean it, you testify, you confirm that yes, there is meaning in it, there is meaning coming from the one who creates, and there's meaning directed to me for me, because it is addressing a question, a need that I feel. And moving on to thanks, and I think this is a comment that has been expressed throughout the conversation today, and I'll take it, for my purposes also. For everything that we do in life, we have what they're called salutations, or like words of thanks and sorry and all of these things. And so they are, the word sorry has a universal implication. No matter what language you say it to, no matter what person you say it to, they understand what you mean. And for something as grand as existence and witnessing existence itself, certainly man, and as an individual, I don't have the capacity to express it, and if I really was given this responsibility to express, it would be fair to say that we can sort of go on to keep saying thank you, or describe it, and express it in all these ways, and it still wouldn't be enough, because of the magnanimity of something that is answering your existential need. So it was also interesting to me to think about the fact that, and maybe someone can correct me on this, the phrase Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is coming from, it is the speech of God. So it sent to us, taught to us through the messenger. So in the fact that we are taught, we are facilitated, we are granted this key for our benefit, for our ease, so that perhaps we don't find ourselves lost in trying to understand and express this. There's mercy in the fact that we are given this phrase to, to unlock all of these feelings when we say it to ourselves. So I think people mentioned this before about this being a key, and definitely I can understand this in these terms. And coming to the question of intercessor, I was thinking, and maybe I'll pose it as a question more than a comment, is for me to take something as an intercessor, should I acknowledge that the thing that I am, or the experience that I'm experiencing, is representing or testifying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and I am confirming that. And so in a way, like, for example, you enter a theater and they ask you for a ticket. So they ask you for it, that they're going to ask you for a ticket, and you have a ticket, and that causes you to enter. So the fact that something testifies in its existence, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and you confirm it, allows you to enter the realm in which you engage consciously with the creator of you and that thing, and allowing you to experience that thing perhaps in the way that it is intended for you to gain and benefit and be satisfied from. So I guess maybe when we talk about the question of, or the topic of intercession, I can understand physical things, like, water being an intercessor, but perhaps does it also require me to search and testify to the claim of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim in water for me to use it as an intercessor? And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Farah, very much for that really wonderful comment. And you touched upon first how the human being is at the center of this very dynamic conversation with the creator, right? And that everything within the orchestra of existence is responding to my needs. And you were saying that respect is at the very minimum mere acknowledgement of this state of being, of this state of reality. And secondly, in terms of intercession, you were talking about how something testifies in existence. I won't try to butcher your own thoughts with a bad summary with my own, but it got me thinking, my words as a human being represent my mindset, and my worldview. They represent me in a sense. And I think saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is a record of my acknowledgement. It is a sign of my confirmation of the reality of mercy and of the reality of existence. And someone's speech is a marker, again, of their mindset and worldview. And so I was thinking, saying and living with Bismillah. So not just saying this phrase, but also trying to understand how we can live this phrase. How does one live with this phrase? Is putting my actions and speech into alignment with reality, matching them up, putting them on the same frequency. So those are just some thoughts that your beautiful reflections initiated in me. And just one other thing is, you know, you were saying that this phrase is also it's being offered as the speech of my creator. It's being offered as revelation, right? And I guess when I think about revelation, I also have to think about what is it that I am in need of? What is the framework in which I approach this text that is claiming to be the speech of my creator? And when I realize that I am in need of something that expresses my state of being, that expresses my feelings, that expresses the acknowledgement that I feel, that mediates that speech, then I also realize that I am being taught, as you said, I am being facilitated, I am being given a key for my ease and benefit. Because I know I struggle to find the words, and it's not just a matter of finding the right words, but a matter of being able to offer a thing that is universal. So even this phrase itself, I think, as you were saying, in it being given is a mercy, because the one that knows the state of being that I'm in, knows my feelings, is saying here is something that will allow you to express yourself, allow you to express that which you are feeling, and put yourself into alignment, into frequency with the rest of creation. Our time is running, but I want to return to two things before. One, Arabe at the beginning of the discussion had raised the concern of what it means to be at the court of the All-Merciful One. And at one point, briefly, we had mentioned that we can understand it to be in his presence. But we can, you know, I'd like to ask him directly if he has further thoughts on it, if he has still questions underlying it, not just him, but us in general as well. You know, what does it mean to be at the court of the All-Merciful One? And secondly, I want to return to Mehmet's questions. He had said, am I curbing my human desire by saying Bismillah, which means I want the best, but I acknowledge your greatness? And he further elaborated by saying, I meant that I had already accepted a result, even though it contradicts with my wish. So I'm not 100% sure I understand still the question, or where the contradiction is coming about between like which result and which wish. If others understand better, they can elaborate or try to answer it. Also, I can just offer the mic to him as well if he wishes, or he can write something in the text box. But I want to make sure that we just make sure we address everyone's inquiries and questions as much as we can through this paragraph. Let me pause right there for a second. Alhamdulillah, I've been very much so enjoying this very dynamic conversation we've been having today. So, you know, at any point, just, you know, I like even the chat boxes, I think offering our agreements with people, or just offering our sentiments on other people's comments is also very useful. So we should continue to have that conversation vocally and textually as much as possible. Let me pause for a second here. H. Beza, please go ahead.
I'm not sure if this will directly address our friend's question about when our friend said already accepting the result even though it contradicts my wish. So I'm not sure exactly what wish and what contradiction, but I guess like in order to have asked this question, I think perhaps a question to ask beforehand would be, what is my wish in terms of what is it that I desire, what I desire? Because the way in which we approach this, right? So when we're talking, or at least as far as I understand, we're talking about things from an existential point of view. So as far as my human qualities are concerned, as far as the way my human needs are concerned that extend beyond the scope of the universe, that is not to say disregarding my physical needs, but I think our primary concern here is my desires for eternal happiness, to have meaningfulness, purpose in my life, those things being addressed here and now for me. So when the comment says accepted the result even though it contradicts my wish, so if it is from an existential perspective that this comment is written from, then if the result of something it brings me to a dead end, it does not connect me to an eternal source that meets my needs, then I don't. What would it even mean for me to accept that? My humanity would, would just frown and just run away and just push it away from myself as best as I could, because anything less than meaningfulness and purpose for my existence is unacceptable for me. So that would just be my 2 cents. I'm not sure if I addressed the question or if I may have misinterpreted, but others are free to share their thoughts.
Thank you, H. Beza. Ali Mermer, you've unmuted yourself, so please go ahead.
Very quickly, I think our needs are not definitely restricted to our bodily needs. For example, everybody talks about honesty. Everybody talks about consistency. Everybody talks about respectful to his own feelings that are given to them. So honesty, let's use the honesty to encompass all the meanings together. The last comment reminded me this. When I am happy with something, this is my own need to express my happiness. Sometimes I express it, most of the time, with my tongue and also facial expression. So if I don't, I will feel within myself that I am contradicting myself. It disturbs me. That is how I am created. If I am thankful, if I am happy with what is created, and if I am aware who is the one who created it, and if this feeling occurs within me, I have to express it. Why shouldn't I express it? Why shouldn't I express it? So I have to express it. If I don't, I will feel that I am contradicting within myself. I think if you do something good or bad to somebody, either you say, oh, I am sorry, I apologize, etc., or I'm very thankful, I'm pleased. That's how we are created. I think these senses are not created only to communicate with our other human friends or peers, other fellow human beings, but we have to use this as well to the creator of the universe, is if we are feeling that what is created out there for me makes me feel happy. I have to express it. And the Creator, as a result of his grace, as bonus, teaches us how to express myself. How do I say, I am very thankful, oh my Creator, because you have provided all these things for me. And he says, use this expression for you. That is what I need guidance for in order to communicate with the Creator. I don't really need, in order to communicate with my fellow human beings, I learn it from the order of the universe, but I don't learn it from the order of the universe. How do I communicate? How do I present? How do I interpret my feelings in order to express it to my Creator? He teaches me, use this phrase, be conscious of it, use it consciously. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I think just it's hard to summarize everything that we talked about, but I think for me definitely it's more clear that Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, in the name of God, the Merciful, the Compassionate, it is both a tool, a key, a mercy, and a fulfillment of a need I find in myself. And I'll leave it at that. Our time is up for today. If you have any remaining questions or comments, please just jot them down. You can jot it down in the chat box as well. We can save it. And for next time, inshallah. And next week, we can start with the next paragraph, which says, the existence and reality of divine mercy is as clear as the sun. For just as a woven tapestry centered on one point is formed by the order and situation of the threads of its warp and weft coming from all directions, so too the luminous threads extending from the manifestation of 1,001 divine names in the vast sphere of the universe weave such a seal of compassionateness, tapestry of clemency, and seal of benevolence within a stamp of mercy that it demonstrates itself to minds more brilliantly than the sun. So inshallah, food for thought, and we can think about this beautiful analogy of divine mercy as a woven tapestry and discuss it next week. Alhamdulillah, I was very grateful for everyone's comments and everyone's presence. It definitely facilitated my understanding of this text. Inshallah, we can try to live with the consciousness of Bismillah and verbalize it and live with it as much as we can, as much as we cultivate that consciousness within ourselves. Jazakallah khair. Thank you, everyone. Inshallah, see you next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. So I'm ending the YouTube here. So I'm closing the room, virtual room. Inshallah, I'll see you next Monday and Friday. It's Saturday as well, sorry. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.